Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got two clips from Joe Rogan talking about the mainstream media and how biased they are and how one-sided they are. And the reason I'm showing you those clips and how they're attached to their sponsors and they're just reading teleprompters and they're not really doing the job that they're supposed to be doing for the American people, which is bringing them the truth, bringing them information so the people can make informed decisions towards the people that they put in office. Now, and just what they know worldwide and what's going on. Now, the reason I'm showing you these clips is because that's going to lead us into a little conversation about a man named Brendan Carr. Trump has just tapped this man to be in a very high position. And this man has an idea that just might stop the mainstream media in their tracks. They're already dying. They're already bleeding out money everywhere. But this guy is really sending a warning shot right off the bat, even before he takes his position. Let's get into the Rogan clips first, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's go.
Like, to bring back the chess analogy, is if you looked at war and you ignored the human casualties and the horrors and the fact that it should absolutely be avoided at all costs and all human deaths are valuable and bombing apartment buildings and all the horrible shit. It's terrible and evil. But this isn't like that we are being fed a narrative that Russia made a big move and there was no other moves.
Right.
And when we find out about the moving of weapons closer to Russia, the discussion of them joining NATO, and you realize Russia is getting moved on. There's moves. Now, you absolutely be correct in saying the correct response is not blowing up apartment buildings and starting a war and invading a country. You're right. But this is not an unprovoked situation.
It didn't just come out of nowhere from a madman.
And we're not getting this narrative on television. This is a new time. And the only way to get this discussion is you guys. It's people like you. And that's what's so important about today. And that's what's so dangerous about censorship. And that's what's so dangerous about these partisan ideas where you're willing to absolutely ignore good points that the other side says, because then you would give them some sort of credit in winning this ideological bullshit game we're all playing.
That is so well said.
Drives me nuts.
Now, I will say, Sagar might be all right. He seems pretty cool. But this lady right here tricked Joe Rogan thoroughly. I mean, I'm just saying, I know she has her own show now, but she is connected to the mainstream media as she used to work for the mainstream media. And now if you look at what she's doing, because this clip is from a little while ago, it's from months ago. If you look at how she is now, how her husband Kyle Kalinske is now, they are what Joe Rogan's talking about. Those people who will not budge because of, their ideological positions. They're basically mouthpieces for the mainstream media. You know what I would compare her and her husband to? The same way that I did an episode recently about NGOs, and I'm going to go to the next Rogan clip right now, but I have to say this. The same way you would think about the government going to an NGO, and that NGO being, let's just say for the sake of argument, right? It's like BLM. Government reaches out to BLM goes out and protests. BLM does the things that the government can't be seen doing. BLM can break the First Amendment, Second Amendment, and impose its will on the people and do whatever it does in terms of damage, but the government can't be seen doing that. That's exactly what people like her are for the mainstream media. They say the things, they have the reach that the mainstream media does not have. You can't have really mainstream media talking heads doing what Kyle Kalinske does on X, calling people all sorts of names, attacking people. You can't really have them doing what she does, and it just gives it a more radical brand. Like, oh man, independent, breaking points. But for the most part, like I said, Sagar and some other people that they have on the show, pretty good. But just wanted to bring that up, Seems like he got tricked by that lady. Let's get into the next clip. Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz.
Well, enough kids listen to podcasts.
Let's slow it down a little bit. I like to watch it like I'm on coffee,
Which is what really bothers people, that they're getting their information from people like us.
Well, they have to.
People like us don't have to lie.
Yeah.
We have zero incentive to lie.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about these things, like, this is what I know.
Yeah.
These are the facts. This is real. You're being being lied to, and it's not like there's not a motivation.
Yeah.
Look at the amount of money they're making by you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a insane sum of money that's involved in a lot of these decisions.
Yeah.
And these decisions roll on whether or not we complain or not. But at least it kind of puts things in check.
Maybe that's the solution. Just show how much money people are making.
Yeah.
Show how much money CNN makes from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh,
and then you will look at every story about pharmaceuticals through that lens.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
That's it.
Anderson Cooper. They do it like right in your face. Brought to you by Pfizer.
The vaccines are perfect. Let's go to a commercial.
Yeah, brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah.
You will not get this virus. You will not transmit this virus. The virus stops with you. And no one complains.
Now, do you think that the people that are disseminating the information are aware of the bullshit, or they are the useful idiots? Meaning, like...
I think at a certain point in time, they must be aware.
And if they're aware, they're evil.
They're trapped. They're trapped. Because I think initially most people did think that the vaccines were going to work.
And it doesn't have to be vaccines. It can be anything. But once you're pushing out information that you know to be false,
right,
and you're potentially hurting people,
right,
it doesn't have to be vaccines. It could be anything.
Right now, you're evil.
That's evil.
That's evil. Yeah.
I don't fault someone who's maybe ignorant or a useful idiot or really passionate about a thing. But the person that knows and still puts it out.
But you have plausible deniability because you're using the opinion of the air quotes experts that are sanctioned. And so they will tell you things and you will say things and you will read articles that support that and you will go, oh, this is a fact.
Not if you're motivated by the agenda of your sponsors. Like if you know that you have to have a certain opinion on the platform and that opinion is based on the people who are paying to sponsor the show, you are aware.
But that's also supported by these experts.
But we can find experts for anything.
Since you're not an expert and you're just a talking head on CNN, your job is to say, but do you understand that the CDC has disagreed?
Yeah.
The FDA has said this is not approved.
Yeah.
The NIH has shown to various studies that this is not correct.
Yeah.
And you can say that and you'll be accurate.
Yeah.
You would be accurate as the news person on CNN
you have your
that's telling a lie.
You have your justifications so you can go home and sleep at night.
And a lot of them don't even do any digging. They're there to do their job. They read the teleprompter. They're gambling on sports betting or something. Who knows what the fuck they're doing with their spare time? But we're just assuming these people are truth tellers. They're not. We're assuming they're even journalists. They're not.
Yeah.
Some of them are, but most of them are just talking heads. They're just pretty people that are good at reading.
That's the transition that we're going through right now. Is just because someone is giving us information on a news platform with a ticker does not mean that they know anything that they're talking about. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily true.
Not only that, we are sure they are highly motivated by money.
Yeah.
Highly motivated. Sponsored by money, put in position by money.
Yeah.
The commercials, it's all money, making that money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no one's listening. That's what's crazy.
But isn't that a beautiful thing?
It is a beautiful thing.
That means the people know, and the people will seek out the information that they deem truthful. Yes, there's going to be some wackos that seek out the most extreme versions. Yes, that's us sometimes because it's really fun. I want to indulge in all the conspiracies. It's awesome.
It's fun.
But at the end of the day, when I have to make a real decision, I'm going to seek out the information.
Right.
I'm going to read as many things as possible. If it's my life on the line or my kid's life on the line, or my friend's life on the line, I'm going to actually go out there and figure it out. Hopefully.
And the thing is, if it's not for a few brave people that stand up and tell you the truth, how do you, if there's no Peter McCullough, if there's no Robert Malone, if there's no RFK Jr.,
Malone is if
there's no Pierre Corey, if there's none of these people that stand up and lose like a sizable portion of their income, their careers get destroyed, their reputations get dragged through the mud, hit pieces get written about them. If it wasn't for these people that stand up and do that, and I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that I would get sucked into that.
What do you mean?
I never thought that I would get sucked into something like that where people would be like lying about me. But when you watch it, like on CNN,
that's
just
a function of power, dude.
Out lying. But it's wild.
Yeah.
Man, yes, that is I just want to say really quick, anybody who's watching these things, anybody who's watching the news and stuff, they're just dressed up YouTubers. They're just YouTubers with more steps. That's all they are. They're just YouTubers with way too many staff. That's all. That's all it is. You don't really need much to do all this. I'm telling you, if you're ever considering doing this, do it. Who cares? Don't worry. Your boss won't find out. Nobody's going to know. You're not going to do that well that quickly. And if you do, you can tell your boss to F off. It's great. So don't even worry about it. You just start. You should. I tell everybody that. I'm like Joe Rogan back in the day when he was like, everybody should have a podcast. Everybody. Are you kidding me? I understand why he used to say that, because he's like, wow, how did things turn into this so quickly? But also, when it comes to how much they make off of pharmaceuticals, the advertising and everything, you could easily look that up. There should be something where you're constantly told that. Maybe there should be a ticker in the screen of mainstream media, but that is something that you could look up. But it's something you never even think to look up, really. But it is a considerable amount of money. I would say it's hundreds of millions. I think they spent, I haven't checked these numbers in a while. I'm pretty sure the last time I checked was the end of 2023, maybe beginning of 2024, but it was something like 800 some odd million, maybe more. But it's a sizable amount, and they do it on all the stations. So they take up like a good portion of all advertising on legacy media like it's large. It's in the 80s in terms of percentage. Anyway, let's get into this gentleman. In comes Brandon Carr.
But as you noted, combating tech censorship is going to be one of the top priorities for me. We need to restore Americans' right to free speech. And you mentioned Facebook and other companies. They've been part of a censorship cartel that have worked with advertisers. They've worked with government officials to censor the free speech rights of everyday Americans. And that's got to end, because censorship isn't just about stopping words. It's about stopping ideas. America is a country of founders, of people that have pushed boundaries, pushed frontiers. They've innovated. And when you silence speech, you silence ideas. And we need to unleash America's prosperity again. That's why you feel this vibe shifting in the country, where people know President Trump is about to lead another great American comeback, because this wet blanket of government control is going away, and our economy is going to flourish again.
Oh, this gentleman. Who is he? Maybe you don't know. Trump actually named this gentleman the FCC chair. Brandon Carr will be the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, FCC. Absolutely wild. Someone who's talking like that is going to be the chair of the FCC. Now, that wasn't the radical idea. You thought that was the radical idea that he was talking about? No. Now, here he's talking a little bit about the whole SNL debacle, the way that they gave Kamala time on the show, and because of that, they had to give Trump some time. It's a brief one, but then we're going to get into the big clip. Let's go.
What should be the ramification here?
Yeah, we need to keep every single remedy on the table. I mean, one of the remedies the FCC has ultimately would be license revocation if we find that it's egregious, and we'll see what they have to say about this. But it needs to deter this type of conduct, because when you're 50 hours before the opening of Election Day, the whole purpose of this rule is to give people a fair shot.
So he's talking about being fair on both sides. He's talking about Americans having freedom of speech. But this is the thing that I love that he's talking about, because this so needs to happen to at least one of these mainstream media companies. Let's go.
When you say things to take a fresh look at, what are you talking about?
You look on the media side, I think there's no question that trust in media is an all-time low. That's just not my opinion alone. Jeff Bezos did an op-ed recently where he noted how media used to be the most trusted institution in America, and for a long time, at least they could say we're more trusted than Congress, and now that has passed as well. It's fallen to the bottom. And so I think there's a lot that needs to take place to restore trust and confidence in media. And there's a role for the FCC, at least on the broadcast side, for instance. They have to operate in the public interest. And I think it's probably appropriate for the FCC to take a fresh look at what that requirement looks like.
So, I mean, is that signaling that others have said you've done, that you're open to TV networks having their licenses revoked if they have, for example, perceived liberal bias?
Well, look, the law is very clear. The Communications Act says you have to operate in the public interest. And if you don't, yes, one of the consequences is potentially losing your license. And of course, that's on the table. I mean, look, broadcast licenses are not sacred cows. At the same time, when you think about media, separate into two issues, right? You've got the national networks, for instance, ABC, NBC, CBS. They provide a lot of the content that the actual licensed local broadcasts disseminate. And so we need to look at empowering those local broadcasters to serve their local communities, even if that's in conflict with the interest of those national networks. I mean, at the end of the day, you got all this content from Hollywood and New York that's being distributed down through these local broadcasters. Let's make sure they feel empowered to do the right thing by their local community.
Man, I love the sound of that. We got people talking about the mainstream media losing their press credentials in the White House, not being able to get in there, having podcasters in instead. You know, we're going to see in the next election, people are just going to be doing podcasts. They're barely even going to touch on MSNBC and all those places. They're not even going to stop by. They're going to be stopping by podcasts. They're going to be lining up for Rogan and Patrick Bet-David and all these programs. It's changing so much. I love it. And again, if you're thinking of doing this, do it. Don't let any idea die inside of you. Take it and do something with it. Now, I just want to hear him say something again. He said that there's certain law. Let me just play that one more time.
Act says you have to operate in the public interest, and if you don't, well, look, the law is very clear. The Communications Act says you have to operate in the public interest, and if you don't, yes, one of the consequences.
Wow. So you have to act in the public's interest. That's very interesting because obviously MSNBC does not. Joy Reid telling people that if they have relatives that voted for Trump to, let them do their own Thanksgiving and separate them. What they were doing before the election was won by Trump when they were saying, any wife that wants to vote for Kamala, just hide it from your husband and kind of subvert the family in that way. Just things like that. That is clearly not in the public's interest at all. So I guess if this guy gets into the position, like he's more than likely going to, I don't see anybody really opposing this choice at all because he has been the FCC commissioner. So no one can say he's not qualified. They can say his ideas might be a little radical, but they can't say he's not qualified. So, this actually might be a thing. I'm very happy about this pick. This is one of the lower picks. I shouldn't say lower, but it's been a little low key. People haven't brought this up all that much. But, given what he's saying and what he thinks about the mainstream media and what they should be doing, I'm very excited about this because the mainstream media hasn't been about the public's interest in, you could really say since Obama. You could probably go a little bit before that. But it makes me wonder if Obama, I think he reinstated the Smith-Mundin Act. I believe it was where you can show propaganda. I wonder if that has an impact in why these mainstream media outlets haven't been following this law that Brendan's talking about, where they have to act in the public's interest. I wonder if if those two laws are butting heads, or if one seems to be over another. I wonder, or if they're just straight up just ignoring that and just doing whatever they want because, the chair of the FCC before has always just allowed it. I don't know, but I can't wait for this stuff to stop. You're starting to see it a little bit. CNN already changed up their act a little bit. Not really. They added Scott Jennings. If you ever, no one wants to watch CNN, let's be real. But I have to from time to time. And there is this one guy who's conservative, and he's been all the talk of CNN recently because he's that one guy who puts people in their place, and he's the voice for the conservative crowd, right? You'll probably see MSNBC start doing that as well. Maybe. I don't know. They're so far gone. They're like TDS terminal level. Like all you can do is just hope that they don't go out with any pain. Like that's coming. But yeah, we'll see. They have to switch up their act or else this guy's going to be on them. So I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about what this guy has said about these companies having to act in the best interest. And let me know if you've ever felt like the news. This is to older people as well, because I see my demographics. I know there's some older people. If you've ever felt like the news was acting in the interests of the public, was there a time where that was happening? For all the older people, back in the 1910s and the 1920s, if you could I'm kidding. But you know what I mean. Like, past the 90s, back in the 80s. Like, I was a baby back then. I don't know anything about how it was back then. The 70s, the 60s even, if anybody knows, was it ever in our interest really? Or was it always this propagandic gobbledygook that we see now? Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.